Welcome back to Backyard Builds. Thanks again for tuning in. If you like our videos, please like and subscribe. On this episode of Backyard Builds, I put in my boxing plates, we plug up some rivet holes, I mount the cab and start to cut the floor of the truck out. So what I'm doing now with the chassis is just plugging all the unwanted holes. So there's some I still wanted, so with those in particular what I've done is we've welded some captive nuts in the backside there. So for the unwanted holes, what we're going to do is we're going to use this, so just a piece of copper flat bar. What we do is put it under the bottom side of the hole, clamp to the edge of the rail, and then we can pretty well fill that with a plug weld. So I've already done these ones, but I had to let the copper cool down. The copper becomes an extreme heat sink, gets super hot, so pretty well have to wear gloves when you do it. So now all the holes are filled. I've drilled these holes in the top of our rail, so they're essentially plug weld holes. So I've already done the other side. I've got pretty well most of the other side boxing plate on. The camera was at Tom's over the week, so I didn't actually have it to do it. So we've just got some 3mm plates. Essentially what they're going to do is be like fish plates underneath, just for that little bit of added strength through that joint. One on the top, one on the bottom of the rail. So I'll tack those in, plug weld the top ones. I'll tack the bottom plate in, but I won't weld it in. I do want to flip the whole chassis over, and then I'll weld everything on the bottom side then. So the front boxing plates are now done. So still waiting for my transmission to turn up. It's coming by courier, so it should be here mid this week. So today's Monday. But over the weekend, the boys come around and we got the cab on. So the cab's just sat up there at the moment. I've put the original factory cab mounts back in just to set the distance. There seems to be a bit of a discrepancy on cab width to where they line up. I've checked against my other chassis and the width of the mounts is correct, so there must have been a little bit of a difference. So this is an Australian cab. They also produce these in an American cab that were imported to Australia. Must be just a little bit of difference. So this morning what I'm going to do is I'm going to weld our weld-ins into our tubes, because I still need to finish that other left hand mount on that top arm four-link. So I'll go through the process of that. So we're going to put our weld-in ends into our upper links for our four-link. So the weld-in
end itself is machined to sleeve inside the tube here. That's tube diameter there, and then tapers down to the thread with a jam nut. So the whole purpose of having this flat spot in here is so we can rose weld the tube. So what a rose weld is what we'll do is we'll drill 4 holes 90 degrees to each other in the tube, and then we'll essentially just plug weld it. We'll then sand that off, and then we'll leave this weld around the end of the tube and here on the bung unground. So I'll mark them out first, and then I'll drill them and get them welded up. So I've got my holes drilled in there now. So essentially when we, it's a bit hard to do one-handed, but slide that in, we can now see the inside of our insert. So what I'll do now is I'll tack these with a TIG on that joint, and we'll bust the MIG out and plug weld them up. So I'll just explain what I was doing with the laser. So I've set the laser up to shoot center of the bolt there. So that gives me my reference point for the center of this bush over here. And then all we did was take a measurement from the outside of the rail to the diff tube in and replicated that this side. So as you can see, we've got this bracket sorted now. Come around the back, but yeah, as you can see, sorted, both sides are in, so it's pretty well the 4-link now complete. So got the cab mounted up, ended up going for this tube setup back through those mudguard holes that I spoke about. So now that that's set up, set to height, can move on to my next task, which I've already started.
So next job is to strip everything we had in the cab out. So just pretty well got wiring left up in there. Pull it all out, keep going. So the reason why I've set it up on the stands like that and pulled everything out of the cab is I'm going to cut the whole firewall and floor out and start again. The floor itself is solid, but it's very heavily pitted. No point really going to all the trouble that we've gone to with the rear half of the chassis and leaving that the way it is. So we'll clean all that up, pull all that out, and then what we'll do is we'll brace up the cab. So we'll run a diagonal across here, straights across here, and then a diagonal across the cab and another one across the driver's side door, just to hold it in place while we cut all that floor out. Alrighty, so braced up, just 2 braces in it, just to cut the firewall out to start with. Probably put some more braces in when I cut the doors out, but cut the floor out. But for now I just want to get the firewall out so I can put my motor in this weekend and sort of work out where it's going to sit. So yeah, 1 diagonal, 1 straight, just to keep the toe boards out. They were tight to get in there, which is nice. So now to start cutting the firewall. Thanks for watching this week's episode. So next week we'll be back on the ute where we mount up those leafs, set the diff, set ride height, and go from there. So stay tuned for next week's episode. Thanks.